is King of glory, the artist of the skies. Your power is overwhelming. You wrap your arms around us, same ones that shape the mountains.
I went from not forgiven and a lot of anger, being homeless, to hope and having a lot of faith. I came a long ways. Yeah, they're awesome here. Yeah, I look forward to coming each and every week. It's like my little Bible study.
All of the earth is yours. All of the earth is yours. Yeah, you've been down low. You care for your people. All of the earth is yours. All of the earth is yours. We are held close by the God who holds it all. Oh, the God who holds it all. Oh.
It has impacted me basically in helping people in need. And we're helping people in need by passing out survival kits, immediate food, and I bring the lights and the heats in the winter and the fans in the summer. And it blesses me because I also was in the same situation dealing with homelessness.
For me, knowing what these people go through, as I had my time of being homeless, years, sleeping outside, the struggles, I know what they're going through on a day-to-day basis, weather-to-weather basis, and just to come out and help, and just to be a part of God's work, God's ministry, it's a blessing for me.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Grace Church Online. I'm Samantha, and we're so glad that you're joining us this weekend. Here at Grace, our vision is to help everyone become an outward-focused follower of Jesus by connecting, growing, and going. Our theme for 2026 is Knowing Jesus. Throughout this year, we're focusing on knowing Jesus more deeply by walking through every part of his story, his life, his death, and his resurrection. We're excited that you're here as we continue that journey together. If you're joining us for the first time, or you've been watching for a while, we'd love to get to know you. Simply scan the QR code on your screen or head to visitgracechurch.com/connect card to fill out a connect card. It is the best way for us to help you get connected, answer any questions you may have, and learn how we can pray for you. At Grace, we believe giving is an act of worship and obedience. Through your generosity, God continues to change lives, both inside and outside the walls of our church. This past week, more than 400 middle and high school students spent the week at camp. It was an incredible week filled with fun, life change, and powerful moments as God moved in big ways. Because of your faithful generosity, experiences like this are possible. Thank you for investing in the next generation and helping us create opportunities for students to grow in their faith. If you'd like to give today, you can scan the QR code on your screen, text GIVE followed by the amount to the number on your screen, give through the Grace app, or go to visitgracechurch.com/give. Our senior pastor, Tim HOWEY, has spent the last 2.5 years preparing a long-form talk for our church on sexuality, gender, and identity. How do we handle these important topics well and people's hearts well? This video is 2.5 hours, and you can find it on our YouTube page at visitgracechurch.com/tensions. We encourage every one of you to invest the time to watch it, listen, and take notes, and listen to the Holy Spirit. Here's the start of what Tim had to say.
Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you about sexuality, gender, and identity. Sexuality, gender, and identity. And I know there are a lot of thoughts and feelings around these topics. They aren't light topics. They're important, they're very personal, and they're hotly debated today. Sexuality, gender, identity. These are the very definition of what's called crucial conversations with high stakes, high emotions, different opinions. And I know I'm speaking to many of you, the people in our church, Grace Church, for whom these topics are incredibly real and difficult and personal for you too. Maybe you're a concerned parent. When it comes to your child, you're sad or scared or hurting for them. And when the topic of your child's sexuality, gender, or identity comes up, you're not sure what to say, you're not sure what to do, but you're hurting. Maybe you're concerned for your brother, sister, cousin, niece, or nephew. I saw a prayer request just last month at Grace from a fellow Gracer who sent this in. I am asking for continuous prayer on how to navigate through the news of my brother coming out as gay. I want to share the love of Jesus, but also truth. Maybe that's you. You're concerned about someone you love, and you want to handle their heart well and present the truth well. Maybe you're concerned about society. You're watching what's going on in our society, and you're alarmed or angry. You're concerned about what's being taught today. You're concerned about how culture is shifting and people's views are changing. I had a fellow Gracer text me. This man is a longtime friend of mine here at Grace. My friend is a committed volunteer in our ministries, very faithful. And my friend walks with God. And earlier this year, I guess some Gracers were talking about this video that I was making, and so my friend texted me some advice. There are rumblings of this video already circulating. If you say anything other than blank, then many will feel that we're missing the mark. And my friend documented very specific words and phrases for me to say. So maybe you're like my friend. You care very deeply about these topics. You're concerned about society, and you want to see us shepherd people well here at Grace. But maybe you're someone who's wrestling with these topics yourself. You're wrestling with your own sexuality, gender, identity. And you're wondering who in the world you can tell, who you can't tell, or how you can even talk about these topics with people. Or maybe you're not a Gracer and you're checking out this video online and you're wondering if Grace is the kind of church that would even allow you to explore faith here. I've had a certain type of conversation a number of times over the years, which always breaks my heart. Maybe I had this very conversation with you. You didn't come to me yourself. Someone else came to me on your behalf. Either your friend came to me or someone you met at Grace, and that person asked me, would you be willing to talk with so-and-so privately? They are wondering if they'd be welcome. And so you and I sat down together and you shared how your family has responded or different churches responded to you. And it was incredibly painful. And you frankly didn't know if you'd even be welcome at Grace. Is Grace the type of place that you could explore what faith is, what the Bible is, who Jesus is? You didn't know. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're wondering if the people of Grace would even let you explore faith here. My hope is the answer is yes. There is so much fear and anger and hurt around these topics today. We want to be here to help you wherever you're at to navigate this. I want to share some things in this talk that if you and I had the chance to sit down together with a cup of coffee, and if you could share your story and allow me to care for your heart, what would I say? I'd love to have that conversation. I'd love it if all of us at Grace were able to have that kind of a conversation too. But maybe you're a Gracer and you don't feel equipped to have that kind of conversation with someone else yourself, at least not yet. I mean, could you sit with someone, listen to them, love them, and then open the Bible yourself to specific books, chapters, and verses in the Bible? You know where to go. And could you explain God's heart, God's best for all of us, the good news of Jesus Christ, when it comes to sexuality, gender, or identity? Book, chapter, and verse. Could you do that? My hope through this talk is to help all of you who are hurting or concerned or struggling with these topics yourself, and to equip you Be able to have these kinds of conversations with other people yourself as God gives you the chance to show people the path of life.
Oh, I was buried beneath my shame. Oh, who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. Yeah. Oh, I was breathing but not alive. Oh, all my failures I tried to hide. Oh, it was my tomb till I met you. Come on, Grace Church, let's sing this out. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. Yeah, you called my name and I ran out of that grave. Yeah, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Your mercy has saved my soul, and now your freedom is all that I know. Come on, here we are. Yeah, the old man knew Jesus when I met you. Yeah, you called my name and I ran out of that. Yeah, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Oh, you called my name and I ran out of that grave. Oh, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Come on, let's celebrate this morning. He rescued us from our sins. Come on, here we go. I needed rescue. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. And I needed shelter, 'cause I was an orphan. Now you call me. Come on, let's sing it out this morning. Yeah. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, come on, let's shout it out. Yeah, yeah, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Yeah. Oh, you called my name and I ran out of that grave. Oh, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Glorious day. Come on. Here we go. Why would I worry? Yeah, why would I worry when giants come calling my name. 'Cause my God is so much bigger than the troubles I face, yeah. And why would I hunger for power or riches or fame? 'Cause my God is so much better than all of these things. Come on, I won't be shaken. Sing it out. 'Cause I won't be shaken. No, I won't be moved. 'Cause my God is faithful. His promise is true. So I'll speak to the mountains. Oh, it's time to move, yeah. 'Cause my God is bigger, better, stronger, greater. Oh, y'all sound beautiful. Come on, let's keep singing. My enemies scatter, 'cause they know the battle is done. And my God is so much stronger, the victory's won. He died for my ransom and rose up on the third day. 'Cause my God is greater than death, yeah, hell and the grave. Yeah, I won't be shaken. Oh, I won't be moved. 'Cause my God is faithful. His promise is true. So I'll speak to the mountains. Oh, it's time to move. Yeah, my God is bigger, better, stronger, greater than you. Yeah. 'Cause there's no mountain too high, no valley too low. There's no fear that I have He doesn't already know. There's no problem too big, there's no weapon too strong. There is nothing for God that's impossible. There's mountain too high, no valley too low. There's no fear that I have He doesn't already know. There's no problem too big, there's no weapon too strong. There is nothing for God that's impossible. I won't be shaken. No, I won't be moved. 'Cause my God is faithful. His promise is true. So I'll speak to the mountain. Yeah, it's time to move. 'Cause my God is bigger, better, stronger, greater. He's bigger, better, stronger, greater. He's bigger, better, stronger, greater. He's bigger, better, stronger, greater than you. Come on, let's sing that one more time. I won't be shaken. 'Cause I won't be shaken. No, I won't be moved. 'Cause my God is faithful. His promise is true. Amen to that. So I'll speak to the mountains. Oh, it's time to move. 'cause my God is bigger.
See, on the hill of Calvary, my Savior bled for me. My Jesus set me free. Look at the wounds that give me life, grace flowing from His side. No greater sacrifice. What He's done, what He's done. All the glory and the honor to the Son. My sins are forgiven, my future is heaven. I praise God for what He's done. Sing for the freedom He has won. Even death is dead and done. His life has overcome. Oh, speak, say the name above all names, over every broken place. He is risen from the grave. What He's done, what He's done. All the glory and the honor to the Son. My sins are forgiven, my future is heaven. I praise God for what He's done. Now, on the throne of majesty, the Father's will complete. He reigns in victory. Sing hallelujah to the King. He is worthy to receive all the worship we can bring. Ah, sing hallelujah to the King. He is worthy to receive all the worship we can bring. What He's done, oh, what He's done. All the glory and the honor to the Son. My sins are forgiven, my future is heaven. I praise God for what He's done, what He's done, oh, what He's done. All the glory and the honor to the Son. My sins are forgiven, my future is heaven. I praise God for what He's done. I praise God for what He's done. Oh, I praise God for what He's done.
Well, what is up, everybody? It's so good to be with you. I'm so excited to be worshiping with you today and talking about one of my favorite topics, Jesus. So let's just jump right in. I think maybe most of you have probably heard this phrase, perception is reality. Perception is reality? This was a phrase that was popularized by a political strategist named Lee Atwater back in the 80s. And it's basically the idea that what we perceive, we believe, whether it's actually true or not. Now, whether you actually believe that or not, or you ascribe to that theory, the reality is that we live in a culture, in a world that is built on appearances and perceptions. And, social media has done nothing but amplify that. And, we post things on social media that we want people to see because we want people, or we want to shape how people view us, right? So we post curated realities, right? We post, and it's not that they're fake, but we post, the selfie with the glorious sunset behind us on vacation. Or, we post the family pic that everyone's smiling for those 2 seconds, and then they go back to doing whatever it was they were doing, which may have been fighting. Or we post the highlight reels that are just fun and family and, good times and living our best life and all those types of things, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. Now, what we don't typically post are the other realities of life. Typically, we're not posting stuff like, hey, just had a fight on our way to church. Or, I'm right in the middle of a panic attack. You typically don't see that on a reel anywhere. Or, this is my second bowl of ice cream and it's 10 p.m. You don't get that. Those are the realities we typically don't see. We show people our highlight reels on the outside while hiding our late night bowls of ice cream on the inside. Now, let me just say, there's nothing wrong with making a good impression. That's fine. That's a good thing. But it can be a slippery slope. And for those of us who are followers of Jesus, if we're not careful, we begin doing the same thing spiritually. And we become more concerned with looking like disciples of Jesus instead of actually becoming disciples of Jesus. Now, if you're joining us today and maybe you're just exploring faith, maybe you just happened upon this channel, maybe somebody invited you, maybe you're watching with someone, you're not a follower of Jesus, you're just checking it out. But maybe one of the reasons that you're skeptical or you have been skeptical of church is because you've met someone who looked very religious, but they didn't look like Jesus, or at least the Jesus that you've read about or that you've heard about. Now, let me just say, if that's been your experience, you're in good company because Jesus saw that too. In fact, that's exactly what Jesus confronts in the passage that we're going to be looking at today in Luke chapter 11 and chapter 12. He confronts a group of people who had mastered the appearance of following God while their hearts were far from God. Now, if you've been with us for any time at all this year, you know that we've been walking through the Gospel of Luke together, and we've had one goal in that, and that is knowing Jesus. We want to know Jesus through his life, through his death, through his resurrection. And so that's why we've been looking at the Gospel of Luke together. And we began a new series last week asking the question, what is discipleship? What is discipleship? What does it actually mean to follow Jesus? Now, today we're going to be covering a large portion of the Gospel of Luke. And when I say a large portion, we're covering the bulk of 2 chapters. Now, we're not actually going to look at the specifics of all of those chapters, but we're going to highlight some verses. But I would just encourage you, take out a Bible if you got one. Turn it to Luke chapter 11. That's where we're going to start. Or if you got the Bible on a device of some sort, go ahead and open it there. So that way you can kind of fill in the gaps that we're going to be skipping past. Now, what we are going to see as we walk through this passage together is that Jesus draws a clear dividing line between religion and discipleship. And I know some of you are probably saying, well, aren't those the same thing? And they should be, but a lot of times they're not. And sometimes the dividing line we see is that religion manages perception while discipleship pursues reality. Religion manages perception while discipleship pursues reality. Now, we're going to be starting in Luke chapter 11, verses 39 and 40, but let me just give you a little context here. Verses 37 and 38, Jesus is invited to a dinner over at a Pharisee's house. Now, a Pharisee was a religious leader back in Jesus' day. And before the meal, he intentionally skips a ceremonial washing ritual, which when he does that, the Pharisee's shocked. Right? Here's a rabbi, Jesus, who is skipping the ceremonial washing that he should be doing. Now, Jesus uses this moment to address a much deeper issue than just washing. He wants to address their hearts. So check out what he says, starting in verse number 39. It says, "Then the Lord said to him, 'Now you Pharisees make the outside of the cup and dish clean, but your inward part is full of greed and wickedness. Foolish ones, did not he who made the outside make the inside also?'" So the issue that Jesus is addressing here is not dirty hands or the outside of the cup. The issue he's addressing is dirty hearts, the inside of the cup. And the Pharisees were great at managing perception. But see, Jesus is great at exposing reality. Now, here's the thing. Jesus is always more concerned with who we're becoming on the inside than how we appear on the outside. He's always going after the heart. Now, by the way, this isn't a Christian problem, by the way. And some of you who maybe, if you're not a Christian or Jesus follower, you're saying, yeah, it is a Christian problem. Well, it is a Christian problem, but you really, more to the point, it's a human problem. We all do this. We all have a tendency to polish the outside while ignoring what's happening on the inside. In fact, that's why we spend so much money on self-help resources and therapy and all those things. All good things, by the way, but really it's the reason why all of us need Jesus, because he's the ultimate answer to this issue. Now, from here, Jesus begins exposing the difference between religion and discipleship. And the first thing we're going to see is that disciples of Jesus pursue a pure heart. Disciples of Jesus pursue a pure heart. Let's check out what he goes on to say, starting in verse number 42. He says, "But woe to you, Pharisees," which is a strange thing. We don't typically talk that way anymore, but that just basically means warning. That's what woe means, warning, or sorrow awaits, danger, right? "Woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, but pass by justice and the love of God. These you ought to have done without leaving the others undone. Woe to you, Pharisees, for you love the best seats in the synagogues and the gatherings in the marketplace. You love being recognized. You love being honored. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like graves which are not seen, and the men who walk over them are not aware of them." Okay, so some of this is a little bit of odd speech to us, but just to clarify a couple of things that Jesus is accusing the Pharisees of. First of all, he says that they tithed herbs from their gardens, which this was kind of a radical expansion of an Old Testament law to tithe, to give a tenth of the first part of your crops. Right? But these Pharisees were taking their little gardens of mints and herbs and spices that they would use for their cooking and taking it and tithing a tenth of even that into the temple. Now they did that, but they ignored justice and the love of God. They were meticulous about what mattered least while ignoring what mattered most. And this is a little like those of us who are really meticulous about things in faith, like, a church attendance and, I serve at church and I read my Bible, I give, I serve, I do all these things while at the same time being impatient with our spouse or being harsh with our kids or being totally indifferent to people who are in need all around us. We major on the minors, and that's what the Pharisees were doing here. Now, it also says that they were like hidden graves. Hidden graves. Now, this sounds odd unless you understand the culture of the day. Just a quick explanation without going into a ton of detail here. In Jewish culture, touching a grave made someone ceremonially unclean. Ceremonially? Did I say that right? Ceremonially. Yeah, I think I did. Ceremonially unclean, right? And so before festivals in Jerusalem or big events or feasts or things like that, when they knew they had a lot of out-of-towners coming in, they would mark the graves so people would know not to get close to them or step over them, right? Sometimes they call it whitewashing the tombs, right? You see that phrase in a couple of other gospels. So people could avoid them. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this. I know we do. We've done this a lot. Those of you who maybe lead small groups at your house or grace groups or things like that. Have you ever done company is coming over cleaning? You know what I mean? Like it's not really cleaning, but it's company's coming cleaning. And so you don't actually clean everything. You just clean the spaces that you know company's going to be in. Like the living room, you kind of spot check it, clean the kitchen, maybe that one bathroom that the guests are going to use, while hoping that no one opens that one closet that you've stuffed everything in, hoping that they avoid an avalanche that might actually crush them. This is kind of what the Pharisees are doing. There's a perception of clean, but it's not really clean. That's what they're doing spiritually. They appeared healthy, they appeared clean and harmless on the surface, but Jesus says, you are like a hidden grave. You, underneath the perception of spiritual health is spiritual death. That's what lies underneath. Now, here's what makes a hidden grave so dangerous. People don't know to avoid it. So when people are in town and the graves aren't marked, they're walking over these things, they're becoming ceremonially unclean. And because the Pharisees appeared spiritually healthy, people trusted them. They were leaders. They were spiritual leaders. They trusted them. They followed them. They were influenced by these men. And without realizing it, their dead spirituality was affecting everyone around them. See, the Pharisees weren't just managing the perception of their own lives, but their hidden corruption was influencing everyone around them. So let me ask you a question. What's the biggest complaint that you hear from non-Christians about Christians? They're hypocrites. Right, I heard you back there. I got you. They're hypocrites, right? We get that all the time from people who are non-Christians about Christians. And a lot of times it's true, unfortunately. But for some people, their greatest obstacle for following Jesus isn't Jesus. The greatest obstacle for them following Jesus is someone who's misinterpreting him. They're presenting a different Jesus than who Jesus actually is. And this is why the harshest words that Jesus has are reserved for religious leaders. Jesus doesn't talk like this to everybody. He saves this type of language for religious leaders who, instead of leading people to God, they're leading people astray. Now, if you struggle with religious people, if you're not a religious person, if you're not a Jesus follower, and you struggle with religious people, again, you may have more in common with Jesus than you know, because he struggled with them too. Now, in verse 45, the story picks back up, and there's an expert in the Old Testament law who speaks up. And he says, Jesus, by saying these things, you are offending us too. And Jesus responds by saying, hey, I'm glad you noticed, because that's exactly what I was trying to do. Offend all of you. Actually, this is what he really says in verse number 46. He says, woe to you also, lawyers. And by the way, lawyers, again, they were experts in the Old Testament law, not like lawyers like we would have today, but these guys were just religious leaders who were expert in the law of Moses. Woe to you also, lawyers, for you load men with burdens that are hard to bear, and you yourselves do not touch the burdens with one of your fingers. You load people with burdens that are hard to bear, and you don't lift a finger to help them. Now, in verses 47 to 52, he goes on to talk to them a little bit more. Let me just give you a quick summary there, because we're not going to have time to read it all. But these religious experts had taken God's beautiful law, and they had turned it into this crushing burden for people. And instead of helping people know God, they actually stood between God and the people. In fact, it says in verse 52 that they'd taken away the key of knowledge, and they stood in the doorway so people couldn't know God. And today we have a term for this. It's called legalism. Adding these extra rules and laws and just burdening people with things that God never intended us to be burdened with. Now, I want you to notice the pattern here. whether it's the Pharisees or the scribes or the lawyers, Jesus isn't confronting their behavior. They don't have a behavior problem. Their behavior looks great. He's confronting a heart problem. They look spiritual, they sound spiritual, but their hearts are far from God. See, here's what's so dangerous about managing perceptions. Eventually, we start believing our own perception. We start believing the lie. And we mistake activity, doing a lot of things, for intimacy, being actually connected to Jesus. We mistake knowledge, I know a lot about the Bible, for maturity. I'm actually growing and being spiritually mature. We mistake outward cleanliness for inward transformation. Now, I'm not just sharing a good Bible principle here. I'm actually sharing my own experience. I was this Pharisee. I was this Old Testament expert in the law, although I might not have been so expert, but I was this type of religious leader. There was a season in my life where I just thought I had all the answers. I knew it all. I was doing all the right things. All the things that disciples are supposed to do, I was doing those things, right? And if you were to look at me from the outside looking in, you'd say, man, that guy is definitely a follower of Jesus. I mean, I'm preaching, I'm teaching, I'm leading groups, I'm serving at church, I'm giving, I'm doing all the things. I'm bringing people to Jesus, I'm making disciples, all of those things. And yet underneath, there were massive areas of shame, brokenness, pride, insecurity. I was a people pleaser. I mean, there were so many things that were broken on the inside of me that needed transformation. And I became really good at looking like a disciple while resisting the work of actually becoming one. And that's the work that needed to be done on the inside. And I got to tell you, it was absolutely exhausting. It was completely exhausting. And maybe some of you are in the same situation. You know, we all drift toward managing perceptions. Jesus keeps calling us back to reality. See, because discipleship isn't pretending to be someone you're not. It's allowing Jesus to transform who you really are. Religion manages perception. Discipleship pursues reality. So let me ask you, what in your heart is Jesus trying to transform right now? Because disciples of Jesus pursue a pure heart. So what in your heart is Jesus trying to transform right now? So we see that disciples pursue a pure heart. Next, we're going to see that disciples of Jesus pursue authenticity. Disciples of Jesus pursue authenticity. So after exposing the religious leaders, and next he turns to his disciples. And he turns to them with a warning. Let's check out what that warning is. It's going to be in Luke chapter 12. We're going to read verses 1 to 3. In the meantime, when an innumerable multitude of people had gathered together so that they trampled one another, he began to say to his disciples, first of all, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. For there's nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the light. And whatever you've spoken in the ear in inner rooms will be proclaimed from the housetops. So Jesus gives a warning here. He says, beware of hypocrisy. Beware of hypocrisy. Now, the Greek word that's translated hypocrisy is actually a word to describe an actor on a stage, somebody who's pretending. And he calls it the leaven of the Pharisees, right? So he uses a metaphor of yeast to describe this hypocrisy. And he does that because a little hypocrisy doesn't stay little. Kind of like yeast. A little yeast doesn't just stay a little yeast. Just a small amount of yeast eventually permeates an entire batch of dough and transforms it into something completely different. See, hypocrisy slowly spreads through a person's life, and what begins as pretending eventually becomes a way of living, becomes who we are. See, here's the thing about hypocrisy. Again, it's a double deception. We're not just fooling other people, we're fooling ourselves. We start to believe our own lies, and we become experts at justifying and rationalizing the things that we don't want to change. Now, I'll share a story with you, but I'm sure this doesn't relate to anybody here watching, but I'll share my own story. I'll try to be vulnerable with you. But I've had this conversation with myself more times than I would like to admit, but I'm admitting it now. Whenever I finish dinner at night, I always tell myself, maybe you do the same thing. I always tell myself, you know what, that's it. I'm done eating. That's all my calories for the day. I'm not going to eat later at night, and then that's just going to mess up my sleep pattern, and then I'm not going to get, and so the whole thing. And so I have this conversation with myself, this is it, no more eating. And then about, 9:30 at night, I find myself standing in front of the pantry, viewing all the items, negotiating with myself, I'm not actually hungry, but I'm not hungry. And I don't know. I mean, maybe, does this really count? I mean, this is peanut butter. Peanut butter is protein. Actually, what I'm doing, I'm making a health decision right now. I'm choosing to better myself. I'm fixing I start to rationalize, justify, and who cares that I'm going to take this peanut butter, put it on a warm tortilla, and slather it with honey. Let's not talk about that part. All right. So if you're laughing right now with me, I hope, it's because we all do this in one way or the other. Maybe it's not a pantry, but we all do this. We negotiate, we rationalize the stuff that we shouldn't do and justify it as something that we should do. That is hypocrisy. That's hypocrisy. You see, authenticity begins when we stop negotiating with ourselves and start agreeing with Jesus. That's when authenticity begins. See, Jesus isn't asking his disciples to pretend that they have it all together. He's asking them to stop pretending that they have it all together. Admit it. You don't have it all together. And the irony is verse number 2 and 3. Look what Jesus has promised. He says, look, what is hidden is going to be revealed. What's covered is going to be uncovered. It's going to come into the light. It's going to come into the surface. Jesus, he's not threatening his disciples with this. He's just informing them. He's reminding them that pretending is pointless. There's no need doing it. Eventually, what is hidden is going to become visible. What's covered becomes uncovered, which means that authenticity is not just the better option. It's the inevitable option. You can be authentic now or you can be authentic later, but somewhere it's coming out. What's on the inside ultimately is going to come out. Now, can I tell you something that's true of every person watching right now, including myself? We all have a gap between who we appear to be and who we really are. We all have a gap between who we appear to be, and whether you're a Christian, non-Christian, doesn't matter what culture, we all have this gap between who we appear to be and who we really are. Now that in itself is not hypocrisy. That's reality. We all have that gap. Hypocrisy is pretending that that gap doesn't exist. That's hypocrisy. See, now, if you're exploring Christianity, you may have assumed that Christians think that they're better than everyone else. Now, there probably are some Christians who actually do think that. But the truth is, all of us who are followers of Jesus, we know that we have a gap. But here's also what we know. We know that Jesus is the only one who can transform that gap, who can shrink that gap. See, disciples pursue authenticity. They don't pretend the gap isn't there. They invite Jesus into the gap. They invite his light to come in and shine in that space and expose what's there, because they understand that healing begins with honesty. When we're honest, we can start to experience the healing that God has for us. And you know what? That's what happened with me, by the way. That Pharisee that I once was, and that all that gap that I had inside of me that needed healing, I finally just got honest about it and finally acknowledged it to Jesus. And I invited Jesus into that gap to expose what was there so the healing could begin. See, Jesus doesn't expose us to shame us. He already carried our shame on the cross. He exposes us so he can heal us and transform us. You see, discipleship is the process of shortening the gap, closing that gap. That's a big word for that in the Bible. It's called sanctification. See, we all drift toward managing perceptions, but Jesus keeps calling us back to reality. I need you to ask yourself, where am I hiding right now? Where am I hiding? What have I been pretending is okay that really needs the transformation of Jesus? Where's the gap? Because healing begins where honesty begins. So Jesus has confronted the Pharisees and the lawyers for being hypocrites. He's warned his disciples about hypocrisy. Now he turns to this crowd that is gathered, and his invitation changes. It's no longer a warning. It's not a beware. It is decide. Decide. Choose. Because disciples of Jesus pursue obedience. Disciples of Jesus pursue obedience. Let's check out, we're going to jump all the way down in chapter number 12, verse 49. Now, Jesus, in between these things, does some teaching about riches and possessions. He talks about his return, his imminent return. But then when he gets to the end of the chapter, he kind of sews it all up, puts a bow on it. And he says in verse number 49, I came to send fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. And right there, he's speaking of the judgment that's going to be necessary to make things right in the world. And then he says in verse 50, but I have a baptism to be baptized with, and how distressed I am until it is accomplished. And there he's talking about the judgment that he's actually going to take upon himself in his crucifixion. And then finally he says, do you suppose that I came to give peace on earth? I tell you, not at all, but rather division. So Jesus says some very un-Jesus-y things. He says, I came to send fire on earth. I didn't come to bring peace, and I came to bring division. That's very un-Jesus-like stuff. Division, like what? I mean, isn't Jesus all about, isn't he the unity guy? Isn't he here to bring us together? Now, I can just say this from experience. My conversion to Jesus, my conversion to Christianity, to becoming a disciple of Jesus, was a radical one. And I put my faith in Jesus when I was 19 years old, and almost literally overnight, Jesus brought me from a life of darkness to light. I mean, I went from a life of just utter debauchery and partying and sin upon sin upon sin, brawling, all the things, addictions, to where's the next Bible study? Like, when can we go to church again? No, I don't want to get high with you. I want to go to Bible. It was literally overnight. It was crazy. By God's grace, I started making some very different choices in my life. And there was a very clear dividing line that began to form. And it cost me. It cost me. There were some people just thought I had lost my mind. Friends that I thought were going to be my friends forever weren't. They just ghosted me. They were just gone. It cost me approval. It cost me acceptance. It cost me comfort. It cost a lot of things, but you know what? I've never regretted, not for a day, have I regretted putting my faith in Jesus Christ and choosing him. I've never regretted saying yes to Jesus, and what I've gained in him, the family in Christ that I've gained, the eternity I've gained, the peace, the gap shrinkage in my life that I've gained far outweighs any loss that I incurred. But discipleship and obedience, there's a cost to it. See, Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and he came to bring peace between God and people, right? He came to bring this peace. But sometimes that peace brings division between people and people. That's just how it works. Because discipleship demands a choice. And that choice is not always going to be popular with everyone. You're not going to make everybody happy with your obedience to Jesus Christ. See, obedience creates a natural dividing line within families, within cultures, within churches. There's just natural division. But division is not the goal. Decision is the goal. Obedience is the goal. And every person is eventually going to have to answer the question, what will I do with Jesus? Even if you're not a Jesus follower, you're going to have to answer that question. What will I do with Jesus? And that's exactly what Jesus is asking the crowd in verse number 56. He actually calls them hypocrites. He says, hypocrites. Now, right before this, by the way, he's saying, look, if you look up in the sky and you see clouds forming, what do you naturally gather? Oh, there's a storm coming, right? So he's telling them, you can read the weather, you can see it. He says, hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky and of the earth, but how is it that you do not discern this time? Like with me here, now, right in front of you. He says, yes, and why, even of yourselves, do you not judge what is right? See, Jesus says, look, you know how to read the weather, but you can't recognize the Messiah who's standing right in front of you. This one who's been doing these miracles, this one who's been healing and bringing people from the dead and doing, you can't recognize this truth that's right in front of you. See, the issue wasn't information. It wasn't ignorance. It was obedience. It was making a choice. Wasn't it that they didn't know what was right in front of them or right in general? They just needed to choose it. He says, why can't you decide for yourselves what is right? See, knowing what's right is not the issue. It's as plain as the weather outside. It's choosing it. See, the same question that Jesus asked the crowd that day is the same question that he's asking you and I today. Will you decide for yourself what is right? Will you obey? Will you surrender? Jesus isn't asking for perfection. He's simply asking for surrender. Obedience is where transformation on the inside becomes visible on the outside. So see, we're all tempted toward managing expectations, but aren't you so glad that Jesus keeps calling us back to reality? What truth has Jesus clearly shown you? It's not a secret, it's not a mystery. What truth has he clearly shown you that you're still negotiating over? Still waffling, still trying to choose? What is the thing that Jesus has already asked you to obey that you're not obeying? Let's wrap this thing up where we started. See, religion, it's like posting selfies on social media, right? We can control the angle, we can control the lighting and the filter, and we get to decide what everyone else sees. That's religion. Discipleship's different. Discipleship is like Jesus ordering an MRI for us. An MRI that sees on the inside, and it reveals what's really happening under the surface. It doesn't lie. And it's not there to shame us. It's there to heal us and to help us. That's discipleship. Now, next level discipleship is when we're asking Jesus for the MRI. It's not Jesus just giving us the MRI. It's saying, Jesus, please give me another MRI. I want to see more. I want to expose more of this gap that's inside of me. It's what the psalmist prayed in Psalm 139, 23 and 24 when he said, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. That's asking Jesus for an MRI. If you're exploring faith today, you don't have to clean yourself up to come to Jesus. You simply have to stop pretending that you don't need him, because you do. That's where discipleship begins for you. Throughout Luke 11 and 12, Jesus keeps asking the same question. Are you interested in appearances, or are you interested in transformation? Because religion manages perception, but discipleship pursues reality.
If you made the decision to put your faith in Jesus today or recently, we would love to celebrate with you. Simply scan the QR code on your screen to let us know. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you'll have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Your heart shone through the undoing of the cross. Death defeated all my